Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show that helps you cut through the noise and get to the fascinating core of complex information.
Hello.
Today, we're doing a deep dive that's, well, it's custom tailored just for you, actually. We're pulling from sources you've shared, and they take us into ancient Buddhist texts. Specifically, we're exploring the Pudasi Vatthu.
Which is the story of Punna the slave girl.
Exactly. So our mission today is really to unpack this narrative, understand the key moments, the teachings within these sources, and maybe uncover some surprising insights hidden there.
Sounds good. Where do we start?
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with the setting maybe, and the central figure, Pun herself.
Right, so the sources place us in Rajagaha. Pun, she's a slave girl working for a wealthy householder.
And on this particular day, her task is just immense, really demanding.
Yeah, pounding a huge amount of rice grain. It's heavy, repetitive work.
And the sources, they really paint a picture of the toll this takes, don't they? She's working late into the night by lamplight.
Feeling utterly exhausted, yeah. The text mentions she's like slick with sweat.
And she steps outside just to get a breath of air, basically, to rest in the cool wind for a moment.
You can almost feel that physical exhaustion, that suffering, just reading it.
Absolutely. And that feeling, that state she's in, is so crucial for what happens next, right?
Definitely. Because while she's catching her breath, the source shifts perspective a bit.
Right. It introduces another character, Dhammapada.
Yeah, he's the monk responsible for sorting out the lodgings for the other monks up on Vulture Peak mountain, not far from the city.
And he has this. Well, it's a pretty remarkable way of guiding them back after they've heard a Dharma talk.
It is. The text says he lights his finger, makes it glow.
Like a torch.
Kinda, yeah. To light the path back to their huts after listening to teachings late at night. It's a striking image.
It really is. Manifesting light from his finger.
And this is where Putin's world kind of bumps into theirs, unexpectedly.
Because she's standing there, resting from her own awful labor, feeling that ache and sweat.
And she looks up towards the mountain, and she sees these monks moving along, guided by that light.
And what's really fascinating is what goes through her head immediately.
Yeah.
Seeing them up there, awake, when she can't sleep because she's so miserable from work, she wonders why they're not sleeping.
And her first thoughts are?
Purely physical.
No.
Rooted in her own experience. Maybe someone's sick, or maybe, they're being bothered by snakes or other creatures.
So she's completely projecting her own suffering onto them.
Exactly. Her sleeplessness is from pain and exhaustion, so she just assumes theirs must be too.
It really sets up this powerful contrast the story seems to be building towards.
Precisely. It shows how our own mindset, our own suffering, colors how we see everything else.
So after this really tough night, she still has to face the day, obviously.
Up early the next morning.
And the sources describe her preparing this incredibly simple meal for herself, almost out of desperation, it feels like.
Yeah, she takes bran. Just the rough part of the grain moistens it with water. Makes a sort of patty or cake on her palm.
Bakes it on some coals. And then carries it in her lap to eat on her way down to the river fort. It's like the humblest food imaginable.
A meal that just screams poverty and hardship.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then the narrative brings her face to face with someone important.
The teacher, the Buddha himself.
He happens to be taking that exact same path towards the village that morning.
And Put sees him, and the source gives us this little insight into her thoughts.
Yeah, she thinks something like, wow, other days I've seen the teacher, but I had nothing at all to offer. Or I had something small, but didn't see him.
But today,
both things have happened. I see him and I have something, even if it's just this.
And this moment, this alignment, it leads her to make this really courageous decision.
Despite how basic, how coarse her food is, she decides she wants to offer it.
The text says she thought, if you just accept this without thinking about if it's coarse or fine, I'd give it.
So she puts down her water pot, bows respectfully.
And asks him straight up to accept this coarse gift. She actually uses that word, coarse.
And explicitly asks him sort of, do me this kindness, please take it, and don't worry about its quality.
It really shows her sincerity, doesn't it? The genuine heart behind it, regardless of the material value.
Completely. And the sources add this detail. The Buddha then looks towards Ananda, his attendant.
And Ananda presents the Buddha's bowl, which the text notes was a gift from a king.
So imagine that, a royal bowl being offered to receive this poor slave girl's humble bran cake.
Pun places her cake in the bowl, and then she makes this wish, a really powerful aspiration.
She says, Bhante, Venerable Sir, may the Dharma you have seen be realized by me. She wants to attain what he has attained.
Wow. And the teacher's response?
Simple, profound, delivered right there, standing, just so be it.
Incredible. But even after that, after the acceptance, after the blessing, doubts.
Yeah, it's such a human moment, isn't it? It's so relatable. The sources say she immediately thinks,
Okay, he took it just to be kind to me.
but there's no way he's actually going to eat this stuff.
He'll probably just toss it to a crow or a dog later.
Or, go to the king's palace or some rich person's house and have a proper fine meal. She just can't quite believe it.
But what's fascinating here is
The source says the teacher knew her thought. He perceived her doubt.
he knew exactly what she was thinking. And so what does he do?
He signals to Ananda to prepare a seat. Right there.
Ananda spreads out a robe, and the teacher sits down just outside the town gate.
And he eats the bran cake.
He actually eats it.
He does. And then comes that really surprising detail from the sources. Something quite extraordinary.
The divas.
Yes, divine beings, the text says, from across the cosmos. They somehow pressed out this divine essence, like pure honeycomb juice,
And added it to the cake as he was eating it.
making it, as the text says, nourishing for both gods and humans. And Punna is standing right there, watching this happen.
So her humble offering isn't just accepted and eaten. It's sort of cosmically validated and enhanced right in front of her eyes.
It completely elevates the significance of her simple gift, way beyond its, material ingredients.
It suggests its value was recognized on a much grander scale because of her intention and because of who received it.
Exactly. The intention and the recipient transform the offering.
Okay, so after he finishes the meal, the teacher calls Punna over.
And the sources say he asks her something quite direct. Why she disparaged his disciples the night before.
Disparaged, that sounds harsh.
It does. But she denies any disrespect. She says, no, that wasn't it.
She just explains what she was actually thinking, right?
Exactly. She recounts seeing them on the mountain awake while she was suffering and sleepless. And she says she genuinely wondered why they weren't sleeping.
Reiterating her assumption that it must be due to physical discomfort or some external disturbance, just like her own sleeplessness.
Framing it as genuine puzzlement, maybe even concern, rather than criticism.
And the teacher uses this moment, this misunderstanding, to teach something really profound.
He does. He clarifies the difference. He tells Punna, yes, you are sleepless because of your suffering. Your hardship keeps you awake.
But my disciples...
They are sleepless for a totally different reason. They are always engaged in wakefulness. Sadajagarya anyutataya. It's an active state.
A completely different kind of sleeplessness, not passive suffering, but active, striving.
Precisely. And then he speaks a verse, which the sources record.
What does it say?
The asas. Those are the defilements, the mental taints or outflows of those who are always wakeful, who train day and night, and who are intent on nibbana, cease. They're destroyed, they come to an end.
Okay, let's unpack that a bit. Always wakeful.
The sources suggest this implies continuous effort and practice. Not just literally not sleeping, but being spiritually alert and diligent.
Train day and night.
That specifically refers to the 3 core trainings in Buddhism. The commentary mentions morality, concentration, and wisdom. Sila, Samadhi, Panya.
And intent on nibbana.
Means having liberation, enlightenment, nibbana as their ultimate aim, their constant focus.
So this verse, it fundamentally reframes the whole idea of being sleepless or awake, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It shifts it from Punna's initial understanding sleeplessness as a symptom of suffering to sleeplessness as a path, as a conscious, dedicated spiritual practice aimed at liberation.
Wow. And the impact on Buddhists hearing this teaching.
Immediate and profound. The sources state that right there, standing as she was, she achieved a major spiritual breakthrough.
What happened?
She attained the fruit of stream entry. Sotapadiphala.
Which means?
It's the first stage of irreversible enlightenment on the Buddhist path. She's entered the stream leading directly to Nibbana. An incredible transformation just from hearing that clarification.
Just like that. And it wasn't just for her, right?
No, the sources note the discourse benefited everyone who was there, the whole assembly.
So later that day, the monks are back at the monastery and they're talking about all this.
And the sources say they were kind of remarking on how difficult it must have been for the teacher.
Difficult how?
Difficult to eat that really humble, coarse bran cake offered by Putin. They were still focused on the material aspect, the poor quality of the food.
Still missing the point a bit.
Seems so. And the Buddha, overhearing their conversation, he addresses this directly.
What does he say?
He tells them, bhikkhus, monks, it's not just now. I have eaten bran given by her before.
Before, in a past life.
Exactly. And then he relates a Jataka story, a tale of one of his previous births. It's called the Kuttaka Sindhava Pataka Jataka.
Okay, what's the gist of that story?
In that life, the Buddha-to-be was a magnificent, thoroughbred horse, a truly supreme steed. Initially, he did eat simple food like bran and rice gruel.
But
Later, when he was in a place where people didn't recognize his true quality, his noble lineage, he actually refused such simple food from them. Implying that their lack of recognition, their inability to see his worth, made their offering somehow unfit, or perhaps show they weren't worthy of him accepting it in that context. It's about appropriateness and recognition.
So how does he connect that back to Punna's cake?
By telling this story, he's subtly reinforcing the point he already made by eating the cake and by the whole Deva incident. He's saying basically, accepting Punna's simple offering wasn't difficult for me at all. Because the meaning, the value of the gift wasn't in the bran itself. It was in Punna's sincere intention, her aspiration, her recognition of his spiritual stature, and the whole spiritual context.
So his acceptance reflected her worthiness as a giver and his own state rather than the material quality of the food.
Precisely. It powerfully underlines that intention, aspiration, and spiritual understanding are far more important than mere material value.
So when we pull all this together from the sources, what are the key takeaways here for you, the listener?
Well, first, there's that really stark contrast we talked about. Punna's initial wakefulness, driven purely by her suffering and exhaustion.
Versus the monk's wakefulness, that active, conscious, spiritually driven effort aimed at liberation.
Right. It really makes you think about the reasons behind our own moments of being not asleep in life, doesn't it? What's driving our restlessness or alertness?
Absolutely. And second, the story just powerfully illustrates the incredible value of even the humblest offering.
Yeah, when it's given with that genuine sincerity, a pure intention, and directed towards someone or something truly worthy.
It's not about the price tag, is it? It's the heart behind it. The diva detail just hammers that home.
Completely. And finally, there's Punna's own journey. It's amazing.
She goes from projecting her own limited, suffering-based view onto others.
To making that incredibly deep aspiration, may I realize the Dharma you have seen.
And then achieving that profound spiritual breakthrough, stream entry, the moment she truly understands what that different kind of wakefulness means.
It just highlights the transformative power of sincere aspiration and encountering authentic teaching. It can change everything.
It's a story that, when you really dig into the sources like this, it's just packed with layers, isn't it?
So many layers. Seeing beyond appearances, the power of simple sincerity.
And these fundamentally different ways of being awake or sleepless.
Yeah, it totally reframes that whole concept.
Okay, so for your final provocative thought on this deep dive, the story tells us that the ayasavas, those defilements, they cease for people who are always wakeful in their training and intent on nibbana. Now, Punna's initial suffering was definitely a form of being not asleep. Could transforming the cause of our own not sleeping, whether it's worry, stress, ambition, whatever, keeps us mentally churning.
Transforming it from that kind of suffering into a more purposeful, conscious engagement, maybe even a spiritual pursuit.
Could that be a key to profound personal change? What does your wakefulness stem from right now? And maybe more importantly, where is it actually directed?